Welcome to Inside Athletic Training, a podcast from the Professional Baseball Athletic Trainer Society and the ultimate destination for athletic training professionals, students, and educators looking to learn more about sports medicine and athletic training. In each episode, we'll dive headfirst into conversations with experts in the field, bringing you insights, stories, and cutting-edge information about athletic training and sports medicine. This week on Inside Athletic Training, we welcome in Rick Griffin, a man who spent nearly 40 years with the Seattle Mariners organization, the majority of those as head athletic trainer. Enjoy the show. All right, Rick, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast for episode number 37. We look forward to talking to you about all things athletic training and your awesome career with the Mariners. We'll get into your career in Seattle and all that great stuff soon. But first, I want to share with the listeners a bit about the early days for Rick Griffin and athletic training. So tell our listeners a bit about you, where you're from, what you were into growing up sports-wise, and also how you found your passion for athletic training.
I grew up in a really small town in northern Utah called Brigham City, and we did not have an athletic trainer at my high school, which I'll kind of talk to a little bit more. So I really didn't know, what an athletic trainer was. And I played 3 high school sports. I played basketball, football, and I ran track. I love to hunt and fish. I grew up duck and goose hunting and fishing up in Yellowstone, fly fishing in Yellowstone every summer. So I always liked to be in the outdoors. I always liked to be outside. I liked to be in the mountains. So I always enjoyed, that thing was what I always looked forward to.
And Rick, you spent more than 35 seasons as the Mariners head athletic trainer, a huge accomplishment, really gave your life and career to the ball club in Seattle. Starting from the early days, tell us how you got into baseball, how you broke into the game as an athletic trainer.
Actually, it's a pretty unusual story because at the time, I had no intention of being in baseball. I went to the University of Oregon after graduating from Utah State University, and I went up to the University of Oregon and immediately fell in love with track and field. Eugene is kind of known as track capital USA, and I ran track and I love track, and I got to work with the biomechanist at the University of Oregon. So I was really involved in biomechanics and improving the times of elite runners, distance runners, sprinters, jumpers, doing a lot of work in a biomechanical lab. And I really enjoyed that. I don't know if there was a future in that, but that's something that I was really focusing on and doing. I also received a 1-year, it was a 1-year scholarship to work as an athletic trainer at a high school. It was Winston Churchill High School, and they'd never had an athletic trainer before. So my job was to go to school, and when you look back and think about time management and how you do certain things in your life, and this is one that I have no idea how I did this. So I was going to graduate school. I'd take classes in the morning, and then at 1 o'clock I'd go out to the high school, and then I would teach 2 classes at the high school, health and safety, and then it could be first aid. It might have been an athletic training course or an anatomy course. And then I was the athletic trainer. So I was doing all of those things. And most of the time I would get home from the events at maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock at night and study for my graduate courses, then prepare my lectures for my classes the next day, and then go to school. And so I was probably getting maybe 4 hours sleep that first year. But I absolutely loved what I did. And at the end of my first year, I was working at a coach's clinic at the University of Oregon, down in the basement, down in the training room. We had 12 coaches, and I was working with the head trainer for the University of Oregon, and the phone rang in the training room, and he asked me if I would get the phone, because back then there weren't cell phones and answer machines. And I said, yeah. And so when I picked up the phone, there was a gentleman named Chief Bender from the Cincinnati Reds. And it's easy to remember his name because he was pretty famous, and ended up talking to him a lot over the next few years. But he said, the reason I'm calling the University of Oregon is because I understand you guys have an athletic training program there. And I said, yeah, they have a graduate program there. He said, well, I'm looking for an athletic trainer to be the trainer for our rookie ball team here in Eugene. And we play 70 games. Most of the kids are between 17 and 21 years old. And it would be the trainer and the manager, because we don't have any coaches. And I said, well, tell me a little bit about what the job entails. So he told me about the job. I don't know why he did this, because I was looking forward to having a summer off after teaching and doing all that, what I described earlier. I said, I'll do it. I'll take it. And I remember he said, who the hell are you? And I started laughing. And I said, my name is Rick Griffin. I'm 22 years old. I'm certified, and I have a master's degree. And he goes, you're hired. And so that's how I got into baseball. I picked up the phone, talked to a guy for about 15 minutes, and I got hired, and my salary was $500 a month. And then the team went on the road. I got $5 a day to eat on. So I did that for 4 years. So I taught high school for 4 years, and then I did that in the summer for 4 years. And that's how I got into baseball.
Wow. Yeah, definitely a different story than most of the younger athletic trainers we hear today who, got their master's degree, had a bunch of interviews, and, things are much different than back in your day. I want to talk a bit about your time with the Eugene Emeralds. I think it was an affiliate of the Northwest League back then. A lot of our conversations on the podcast with people who work in baseball have said how important their time in the minor leagues was, just their development as an athletic trainer, and learning and being able to make mistakes without the spotlight on them as it is in the big league. So did you find that same experience when you obviously just were thrust into that role in Eugene? Did you find that was pretty impactful in terms of your development as an athletic trainer?
It really was. And I have listened to some of the podcasts, and that message that is constantly employed out to everybody is when you get out on your own and you have to figure things out and you have to come up with solutions and you have to develop trust. And I listened to Taylor Bennett's podcast, and he and I have talked about that. And I think trust is the most important word in athletic training, because you have to develop trust with the management, with the players, with your fellow athletic trainers. And that's where that all starts, is developing that technique and that concept, and being transparent and honest with your athletes so that they trust what you're telling them. And it's okay to say you don't know. I don't know that, but I'll sure as heck find out for you. And so when you're out on your own, as I was, in the Northwest League with a very marginal facility. My training room was one table, and it was kind of back in a laundry room, and it was just sit back there, and that's all I had. I had my hands and that table, and that was it. And when we'd go on the road, some of the places were even worse. But I was in the Northwest League. I got to travel up through Washington, got to travel to Eastern Washington. We even went up to Victoria, Canada. And then we went down into Oregon, a few places. But I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the bus rides. I enjoyed the fact that I had the same manager named Greg Riddock, who is probably one of the most influential, important people in my life. It was just he and I for 4 years. We had charge of the whole team, and he taught me so much about individuals and managing people and personalities and how to get along. And he was very, very important in my career, but it was definitely eye-opening at the beginning. Having worked in the high school helped, because I had a pretty good handle on things. I've been doing that. But when you get out on your own in a professional baseball setting, it's just you, and you got to figure things out.
Yeah, and when you were doing that and you first started, and you had issues that arose that you didn't know what to do, what was kind of your go-to solution to figure that out? I know it was a long time ago, and resources available to minor league athletic trainers were much less than they are now. So when you were faced with a problem, maybe in your first or second year with Eugene, what was kind of your solution for figuring things out?
I was very, very fortunate to be in Eugene. Eugene had a core of orthopedic surgeons that were kind of the go-to guys internationally and nationally for track and field. There was a guy named Lou Slocum. Ken Singer was down there. When I had problems that I didn't know, couldn't figure out, then those individuals really helped me a lot. And I did have a team doctor that his last name is Dr. Lawson. I had a team doctor that was with me down there the whole time, and he came to every single game. And I was very fortunate, because a lot of the teams in the Northwest League, they didn't have a doctor, or the doctor would maybe show up once a homestand. But my doctor came to every single game. So I was very fortunate in that I had someone I could bounce things off of. And the fact that I was in a kind of a hotbed of orthopedics at the time, I was really able to learn a lot of things. And they always let me go to the surgeries. Whenever any of my players had to have surgery, they let me go and watch the surgeries, which was instrumental. That's something that I carried on when I came up to Seattle in the big leagues. I went to every single one of my player surgeries that I could go to because it just helped me grow as an individual and as a clinician on what I needed to do. By seeing the actual operation, it gives you a much better understanding and idea of what you need to do as a therapist and athletic trainer to get them back on the field.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about a couple of guys who really showed you the way when you were coming up. And I know it's important for everyone to have a mentor, and you were a mentor for seemingly so many athletic training professionals with your time in Seattle. But when you were first starting and you were in Eugene, who were some of those key mentors who really showed you the ropes?
Even before that, probably my greatest mentor was, there are two individuals. One of them was named Dale Mildenberger. And Dale was the trainer at Utah State University, and he gave me a scholarship to be a student athletic trainer my sophomore year. And so for 3 years, I worked in a training room with Dale and learned so much from him. And he gave me the best advice that I probably ever got in my life because I had a scholarship to go to the University of Utah, and I was going to probably go into their physical therapy program and be a GTF and work in the training room. Right towards the end of the summer, I got a phone call from a gentleman named Lou Osternig at the University of Oregon, and he told me that one of the individuals had dropped out, and I was the first alternate to take one of the 12 spots they had for a graduate degree in sports medicine. And so I talked it over with Dale, and Dale said, "Rick, you need to get out of Utah because there's only 4 jobs in the state of Utah for athletic trainers, and you're not getting any of those jobs. None of the trainers are going anywhere." And so him telling me to do that and telling me to go up to the University of Oregon and get my master's degree probably was the most important decision I ever made in my life, because if I would have stayed in Utah, I really don't know what would have happened. So those two guys really helped me a lot. And even when I was in Eugene, Lou Osternig was the clinical director at the University of Oregon, and there's a gentleman there named Rick Troxel. Those were my professors and my leaders that motivated me and pushed me and inspired me to be the best athletic trainer I could be.
Mm-hmm. And fast forwarding a bit to when you joined the Mariners, talk about the development of the profession a bit and how things have changed over time. I know, you were with them for 3+ decades, and things changed so much in athletic training. But how did you kind of view the value and how the outside world saw the value of the athletic trainer as your career progressed in Seattle?
It was very eye-opening to me. And I'll explain this from one standpoint. So my first year with the Mariners, we went down to do the physicals on the players, and we did 130 physicals in about 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you can't do thorough, good physicals in a hotel room on professional athletes, in my opinion, in that amount of time. And so that was my first big eye opener. And the other thing that I was shocked at is they let the players go on the field and work out for about 10 days before they had a physical. And I always thought about, what about liability? What about injuries? What about finding out what they need before they go on the field so you can help them so the injury doesn't get worse? And so my orthopedist and I had some very good conversations, and I explained to him my background, and I was all about prevention, and I was all about maintaining the integrity of the athlete, trying to keep him on the field. And the other thing that we used to do is when we would go on the road, the players would stay home, and they didn't go to a therapist. They didn't do anything. They were just there for, 10-day road trip doing whatever the heck they were doing, and who knew? In my first 7 years in the big leagues, I was by myself. And that's another thing that if you look at the staffs today, I mean, imagine going to spring training and working with 70 athletes, and you're by yourself, and then during the season, you're by yourself. It's a lot of work, and it's very difficult, but through conversations and being able to go up to the front office and explain certain things and talk about, getting more for your money and saving money. I remember I went up and spoke with our general manager at the time, and I said, "Don't you think it's unusual that when you go on a 10-day road trip and you have people that are hurt, but they're not doing anything to recover? What are they?" And I asked him, I said, "What are they doing when we're on the road?" And he goes, "Well, I guess I don't know." And I said, why don't we hire a physical therapist to come to the first and last game of each homestand. And then when the team goes on the road, then those athletes go and work with him, and we get him back on the field better and get him healthy. And he goes, well, that's a really good idea, which, kind of shocked me, but that was a good idea, I guess. And so we started to do that. And then that grew into a secondary position where actually after a while I got to have a little bit of help in the training room. But now the staffs have anywhere from 7 to 10 athletic trainers, strength and conditioning staff, physical therapists, massage therapists, and everything that they're doing is necessary, and it should be the way that it is now. It's just too bad it took such a long time to get to this point. The financial thing sometimes in baseball is a little bit backwards. They sometimes bend over a dollar to pick up a dime.
Yeah, really interesting to hear your perspective on that, because as many of our listeners know, like you said a minute ago, some staffs might have 8 athletic trainers, a couple physical therapists, manual therapists, just so much going on, so many resources, but like you said, very necessary to keep the players healthy, which is obviously of utmost importance. And getting back a little to more of your time in Seattle, you were the second ever head athletic trainer when you were hired in 1983. Within that, you spent years with some absolutely legendary athletes like Ken Griffey Jr., Alex Rodriguez, Randy Johnson, Jay Buhner, many Seattle, icons. So what was it like from your perspective, watching those superstars grow up in front of you and kind of relying on you for so much information about how they can stay healthy and keep playing?
It was, I always tell everybody I had the best job in the world, and I still believe that. I don't think anybody could have had a better job than me. I loved what I did. I went in every day with great enthusiasm, always positive, always optimistic. And like you said, to be able to go to the ballpark every single day and watch Ken Griffey Jr. play, or Alex Rodriguez, or I remember the days Randy Johnson would pitch. It was like every day was a goosebump day, because he was going to go out there and dominate. And then have guys like Edgar Martinez, who is probably one of the greatest gentlemen, and that's the highest compliment I can give a professional athlete, is to call them a gentleman. I had Edgar Martinez and Alvin Davis, absolute gentlemen, that were also professional baseball players. And I got to watch Jay Buhner, who is like a brother to me, and I used to always tease him. I had him for 14 years, and I don't know if there was ever one day that he did not come in the training room and get some kind of treatment. And so I used to always tease him that I was going to put his locker in the training room because he spent so much time in there. But I had a lot of players for more than 10 years, which is very, very unusual. Another one that I had was Jamie Moyer, who was one of my favorite guys I ever got to watch pitch, because he really pitched. He was a soft thrower. He had an amazing career. He pitched till he was 49 years old. And I had him in the middle of his career, and I had him for 12 years. So to be able to go to the ballpark every day and just watch those guys and then earn their trust. And it was great for about 15 years. We did not ever have a player go get a second opinion. We had a great medical staff. We had great doctors. And we didn't have players going and getting second opinions, because they had so much trust with our physicians and our staff. And we also, for many years, had some of the fewest injury numbers in baseball. So there was a period of time when we just had everything going really, really good for us. And a lot of it was when those core of guys that you mentioned were all there.
Yeah. And within that time with the Mariners, anyone that grew up kind of when I did, watching baseball in the early 90s, Ken Griffey Jr., Alex Rodriguez, that core was the best, and so many memories watching. So question for you is, you had a front row seat, in the dugout watching these guys day in, day out. Do you have a few memories, or maybe a core single memory that stands out among the rest with your time there? Perhaps the 95 walk-off win in the Kingdom and the ALDS, which is so famous, or anything like that really stands out to you during your time?
And I get asked this question a lot, and the answer is very surprising. That 95, the double, they call it the double, that Edgar hit the double and Griffey scored from first base. I mean, that was that whole week leading up to that point, and then after that 8 to 10 day period, there's never been a more exciting period in my life than that period. But the single moment that stands out in my career, which again is going to be a little surprising, I think, is my first 9 years in baseball, we had a losing record. We never won more games than we lost. And finally, one year we were in Texas, and we won this game, and that game was our 82nd win. And that was the first time that we had ever won more games than we lost. And I remember Alvin Davis came over and picked me up, and he hugged me, and he goes, "We're finally winners. We're finally winners." And so that signified to him and our team that for the first time ever in the Mariners history, we weren't losers because we actually won more games than we lost. And that was a really big thing, because we were not a good team for a long time. And then shortly after that, about 3 years after that's when we started to win and get some good players, and we started to go in the right direction. But that's probably one of my famous and most favorite memories, was having Alvin pick me up and tell me that we're not losers anymore. We're finally winners, even though to the rest of the world in baseball, that's nothing, because you didn't win a World Series, you didn't win a division.
Sure.
But we first time ever won more games than we lost.
Yeah, that's awesome. And along with those moments in your career that you mentioned, you were honored many times as one of the greats in the game. You and your staff were awarded the 1999 Major League Baseball Athletic Training Staff of the Year Award. You worked 4 MLB All-Star games. You're in the Washington State Athletic Trainers Association Hall of Fame. When you started in the game, when you were in Eugene, or even back in the high school days, could you have ever imagined your career ending up like this with so many awesome and well-deserved accolades?
I never started or thought about any of those things. My only thought was every day to go to the ballpark and do everything I could for the players to help them stay on the field, and then let management know and be honest with them, what the possibilities were on every type of situation. To get all those awards, I think, is mostly because of longevity, but I think it shows a bit about the passion of the individual. I have 3 daughters, and the Mariners honored me. One year I worked my 5,500th game, and they had a ceremony for me on the field. And my youngest daughter, when I came off the field, she made a really funny comment that I think about still to this day. He says, "Dad, I don't know if I should congratulate you or call you stupid." And I said, "Well, why would you call me stupid?" And she goes, "You've had your same job your whole life." And I said, "Well, I love my job. I got to travel. I got to watch great athletes play, and I got to help design the stadium. And so I think I have a great job. And so I don't think I am stupid." And I said, coming from someone who's 28 years old and has already had 6 jobs. And so that was kind of an eye opener for me. But I just really liked what I did, and I liked sharing the message of athletic training. I like being involved in the NHA and PBATs and all of those things. I just like to give back and think forward, and how can we make things better.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've always admired about you is your dedication to the future of athletic trainers and those who are going to come after you and who are going to be entering the game down the road. So you're in charge of the international program with PBATs that also helps give young athletic trainers opportunities like that. Talk a bit about how you became so passionate about the younger generation of athletic trainers and also internationally.
The biggest reason I got so excited about working with international athletic trainers was because of their work ethic and their thirst and their desire for knowledge. I went to Japan, and I put on a little seminar over there very early in my career. It was in the late 80s. I went over with Kent Biggerstaff of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and we put on a little seminar. And the knowledge and the thirst that they had, they wanted to learn everything. And then when I was over there, I met with this individual, and he wanted to see if we could establish an exchange program where we would take Japanese athletic trainers and put them with our baseball teams during spring training. That was the very first thing that PBATS had ever done internationally. And at the time, I was the newly appointed chairman of the International Committee for PBATS. And we started off with 2 athletic trainers that came from Japan. One spoke a little English, one spoke no English. And they spent 2 weeks with the Seattle Mariners. And then the next year we had 4, then the next year we had 6. And it ended the highest we ever had was 12 in a year. The, when COVID came, it was interrupted, but we had placed over 140 athletic trainers from Japan. And something that I'm very proud of is 7 of the individuals who came over and worked with the teams in Arizona have gone back to Japan, and they are on major league staffs in Japan. I think that is just phenomenal that we were able to give those guys knowledge, and we took it back, and they're working in their big leagues. And that led to universities from around the world finding out that we were doing this with Japan, and they wanted to be involved. And so I got letters from universities in Ireland, universities in England. And so we started programs with Carlow Institute in Ireland. We work with 2 universities in the UK. One is called Salford University. The other is called St. Mary's University. We added a new university last year called Tufts Institute, which is also in Ireland. So our international program is probably one of the most seen and recognized in the international world. There's a federation called WFATS, the World Federation of Athletic Trainers and Therapists. And PBATS is so highly recognized and admired that we are actually on the board of that society. We're a voting member on that board because we have so much to do with the growth of international athletic training. We also work with a lot of Latin American countries. And so internationally, we have a very, very high and very strong presence, and we continue to be involved in that. And I am kind of actively recruiting a couple of upcoming replacements to help me along the way. And we've got some good young athletic trainers that are really excited, and they're going to be, stepping in and starting to take this over in the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously doing great work to kind of give opportunities to people that wouldn't get them internationally in baseball and athletic training. And when it comes to those younger athletic trainers, you're not in the dugout every day. You're still so connected to the game and to the profession. When you look toward the future of athletic training and the students who are coming up, is there a single best piece of advice that you could give to them about breaking into the game and kind of solidifying a great career in athletic training in baseball?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that were passed on to me. When I first started in professional baseball, you have to understand that I came from the rookie league to the big leagues. That doesn't happen. I was so fortunate, so lucky. That also upset some people. How did you do that? How did you go from the rookie ball to the big leagues? And so for a couple of years, a lot of the people didn't really go out of their way to spend any time with me. But I had a couple of great individuals. Dick Martin from the Minnesota Twins. He took me aside and he helped me. He taught me. I remember he told me he'd already been there for about 20 plus years. And he said, if you love this job, the only thing you need to do is 2 things. You need to work your butt off and you need to keep your mouth shut. And I remember that. And to me, that meant you don't gossip, you don't tell things you don't need to tell, and you show up early and you work hard and you stay late. And he told me that. And then Jimmy White's or Jimmy, his name escapes me, from the Cleveland Indians, tremendous athletic trainer, helped me a lot. So those things always stand out to me is, be early, don't be late. And then I think just working hard and not being afraid to work long hours. I hear, and I don't want this to sound disturbing, but I hear so many people talk about work-life balance, and training is really hard to create a work-life balance. Well, if you know how to manage your time and you spend your day properly and you're organized, then you can figure those kinds of things out. And to be a really good athletic trainer, sometimes you have to work a lot of hours, and that's just part of the job. And people that survive and do the best are the people that are willing to sacrifice that, and they are also able to manage their time in their life, so everybody gets an equal portion, an extra part. But you have to take. My advice to them is you make sure that you give time to yourself. You have to have some type of a routine, whether you get up in the morning and you go for a run, or you go play golf, or you take 30 minutes at lunch by yourself to clear your mind and get ready for your work day. Very important to give time to yourself.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, a great career from you and so much good advice for the younger group. But looking back on kind of the history of athletic training and PBAT specifically, a few months ago, we were together in Cooperstown to watch the PBAT's Hall of Fame plaque get hung at the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Love to hear your thoughts about that day and from your perspective, what it meant to you and your colleagues who have done so much for PBATs, so much for athletic training to finally get that plaque hanging with baseball greats in Cooperstown.
I am really, really glad that you brought that up. I don't know if you can ever say that's your greatest accomplishment, but to me, going up until that day, that was my greatest failure. I was named in 1997. I was named chairman of the PBAT's Hall of Fame committee, and we had met with 4 presidents. We just wanted to be recognized by the Hall of Fame, our group of athletic trainers that keep the players on the field. And player after player after player got up and gave their Hall of Fame induction ceremony and thanked their athletic trainer by name or their staff. We felt like we had a good case, but it was never heard. And it had gotten to the point where I felt like a failure because I had done everything I could possibly do. I had recruited, the athletes that I had, Ken Griffey, Randy Johnson, Alex Rodriguez, all these people, all these players to do everything we could. And other athletic trainers stepped up, and so frustrating to just hear no, 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 no. And then this year, over a quick 3 or 4 month period, the Hall of Fame got a brand new president, and the president came from the Arizona Diamondbacks. He listened to our message, and he 100% agreed with our message. He never, ever wanted to, stand up in front of the crowd and give a speech. We didn't want to be recognized and take anything away from the players that earned that right to do that. We just wanted to have some recognition. And so we came up with an agreement where we had a plaque that was about 10 or 11 years old that in lieu of getting into the Hall of Fame, we made a plaque and we put one in the commissioner's office in New York, and we made a duplicate plaque, and it was placed in the NHA Hall of Fame office. And anytime someone went into the PBAT's Hall of Fame, the names were added to the plaque. So Steve Donahue and I went up to Cooperstown, and we had basically the same committee for 20 years. It was Herm Snyder, Steve Donahue, myself, and Mike Kozak from the Montreal Expos / Florida Marlins. We had all worked so hard to try to get something done, and Herm Snyder could not go that day. But Steve Donahue and I, he picked me up at the airport at JFK, and he had this big old plaque in the back of his car, and we drove up Cooperstown, and we proudly knocked on the back door that says Hall of Fame Deliveries. And we walked in there, and we had the plaque. We took it out of the box and showed everybody, and then they showed us where it was going to hang. It's in the library. And the next day, we had dinner with the Hall of Fame president, and we had a total of 60 people. And I know you were there, Sam, so you felt the emotion and the excitement of finally getting recognized for what athletic trainers do. And it isn't just about baseball. It's what athletic trainers do in every single sport, whether it's high school, college. It doesn't matter. Athletic trainers help keep players on the field so they can achieve their goals, not only financially, but also the love and joy of playing the game. And so that was a truly great day to be able to get that plaque in the Hall of Fame. And so now that plaque's in the Hall of Fame, and anybody who ever goes to the Hall of Fame can go and see that plaque and see the proud members of the PBAT's Hall of Fame. Their names are there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just an awesome moment. As like you said, I was with you guys there, and just to see everybody and the emotion and all the years and years of hard work of athletic trainers was really amazing to finally get that into the Hall of Fame. And, obviously you're totally, not a failure in anyone's eyes, and in your own eyes now, you won't be, because you were able to get that done. So kudos to you and Stevie and Mike and Herm for getting that done. And all the athletic trainers for years and years and decades to come will be thankful to have that up there as well. Well, Rick, we really appreciate your time. To finish up today's episode, we're going to go with a quick Q&A segment that we call Extra Bases on the show. So I'm going to ask you 4 quick questions, let you share some insight into some of your favorite things about athletic training and baseball. So we'll kick it off at first base. What is your favorite athletic training room outside of Seattle that you worked in during your time in the big leagues?
Well, I can tell you my worst easier than my best, but probably my favorite athletic training that I really enjoyed going into was in the new Yankee Stadium. They did a great job getting that prepared for us. And I also like the athletic training room in the Milwaukee Brewers complex. So those were the 2 that I really enjoyed.
Got it. And moving on to second base, you've seen so many games from so many different dugouts, some stadiums that don't exist, some that are brand new. Did you have a favorite Major League Baseball stadium to watch a game from the dugout?
Again, I listened to a couple of your podcasts, and I agree that if you could just go and sit and watch a game, you'd want to go watch at Fenway Park. But unfortunately, you cannot do that as an athletic trainer in the dugout because there is nowhere to sit. You can't watch the game. But Fenway is absolutely great. Probably one of my favorite places to watch a game. 2 of them are in San Diego and Colorado. I really like the way that they designed their stadiums. The dugouts are big. There's plenty of room. Those are probably 2 of my favorite: the San Diego ballpark and the Colorado ballpark.
And moving on to third base, I know you have a ton of hobbies. One, you're a huge golfer, very into the outdoors. So when you were traveling with the team, what was your favorite city to visit on the road and why? Was that maybe a golf course or something to do that you liked in the city?
When I first started in baseball, I ran a lot. I probably ran about 80 miles a week. So I would judge the cities that I liked the best by the best running routes and the best places to run. Without a doubt, were Boston and Chicago. Those places, great trails along Lake Michigan, go run along the river, go run up at MIT and Harvard. So I love going and running in those places. And then we did play a lot of golf. And my absolute favorite place to play golf, which doesn't relate to the city, was in Detroit. We stayed outside of Detroit at a place called Bloomfield Hills. And I had a very dear friend that he invited me to go play golf one time when he knew we were staying out in Bloomfield Hills. And I had no clue what I was getting myself into. So he picked me up and he drove me to a golf course called Oakland Hills, which was about 8 minutes away from our hotel, which I had no clue. And I didn't know that Oakland Hills had 5 U.S. Opens, a PGA, a Ryder Cup, and all these accolades. It is to this day the most challenging, hardest, but funnest course I've ever played. So from a golfing perspective, I like that. And then I loved going to Colorado because every time we went to Colorado, Keith Duggar would come pick me up downtown and we would go out and we'd go fly fishing. He had a lot of contacts that were up in the mountains. We'd go up and fish these lakes. And I loved doing that. And then Richie Bancells and I, a couple of times, he took me fly fishing in Baltimore. I still remember on the Gunpowder River, which has an amazing history from the Civil War. And I love history things. So those are, I guess, that's a lot of stuff, but that's what I remember.
No, that's great. And moving on to home plate, the last question for today. I know it's been a while since you broke into the game, like we said, 35 plus years with the Mariners. But when you got into the big leagues, think back to your first year. Did you have a welcome to the big leagues moment at some point during that first year with Seattle?
And I actually have a picture of it in my office. I had a really awesome manager for a first year athletic trainer. His name is Renee Latchman. And the first day of spring training, he said, I remember he said, these guys are going to test you. They're going to test you and they're going to want you to prove to them that you know your stuff. And so don't be offended by it. Just take each day and prove to them that you know what you're doing and things will be fine. And that was great advice. And that definitely happened. A lot of times it was funny, but we got some funny stories about that. But the thing I remember about Renee, the second road trip that we ever went on, and when I grew up, I loved the Yankees. I loved everything about them. I read a lot of books, and history of the Yankees, I probably knew more than a lot of people that did over in their dugout. But Latch came and got me one day, the first day we were there, and I had just gotten dressed, and he came and got me. And he put his arm around me, and he says, "Come on, I want to show you something." And so he walked me out to center field, out to the monuments, and he showed me all those monuments and talked to me about those monuments. And then I remember he looked at me and he said, "You're in the big leagues now, so enjoy every day." And I always remember him taking time to make me feel and welcome, and that was truly a great day for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, really great stories, and we really appreciate you sharing your insights and your advice for future generations of athletic training. And always appreciate your time and your dedication to PBATS and just the profession of athletic training. And we hope to have you on again soon.
My pleasure, and happy to talk with you, Sam. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Inside Athletic Training. We hope you've gained valuable insights, inspiration, and knowledge to fuel your athletic training journey. If you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite platform. And also, stay connected with us on pbats.com for more news about athletic training and sports medicine.